Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Max with BuzzTox here, and I am back with a Game of Thrones Season 8 news video. In these videos, I get the latest news on the latest season of Game of Thrones, and try and understand what it means. I just want to issue a quick spoiler warning for everybody out there. If you do not want to be spoiled at all about what's going to happen in Game of Thrones Season 8, please leave right now. And for those of you who stuck around, let's get started. So in this video, I'm going to be specifically talking about the Winterfell attack that is going to take place in episode 3. We know that they built an amazing Winterfell set, and it's going to be directed by Miguel Sapochnik. And this episode is going to be the biggest action sequence in Game of Thrones history. What we know so far is that there's multiple soldiers involved, and we know that Winterfell is going to burn to the ground. But now we got some even more interesting news that paints this action set piece in even more context. First of all, we see Unsullied in the snow. So we know that Daenerys' Unsullied are going to be playing a key role in this battle for Winterfell. And it's been reported that they also have dragon-tipped spears, which makes a lot of sense to fight the White Walker threat, as well as it was established in the last season when Jon mined all of that dragon glass. But even more interesting is that people have been seen on horses, and it was believed that these were Dothraki. But now what we have seen is a lot of these people riding these horses are wearing green screen. So what this means is that we're going to be seeing wights on horseback. White Walkers are usually done in makeup, and wights are created using CGI. Because every wight has a different variation of decay and age. But what's so interesting here is that we have never seen wights on horseback. They're always on their feet and they operate like a zombie. So I think what this means is that we're going to be seeing Dothraki wights that have been resurrected by the Night King. And first of all, I'd have to say it makes a lot of sense. We're naturally going to have Northerners, Unsullied, and Dothraki fighting against the White Walkers to try and defend Winterfell. And since we know Winterfell falls, we know the Night King is going to win, and he's going to be left with all of the deceased. And when the Night King resurrects all the remaining Unsullied Dothraki and Northern soldiers, he's going to be a very formidable foe. And what makes it even scarier is that the Dothraki are known to fight in fields and be very successful at it. But now the Night King has resurrected them. And when the Night King comes, he brings nothing but fields of snow. So I think the Dothraki wights are going to be a very formidable foe for our heroes to deal with. And on top of the Dothraki being resurrected, we have seen shots of soldiers standing together. And at this point, it is unknown who these soldiers are. They could potentially be the Golden Company, because we've heard rumors that they're going to be laying Winterfell to siege. But it could also be Northerners who are fighting to defend Winterfell. What you'll notice is all of these soldiers are carrying shields. So it would be interesting to see the Northerners finally fight with shields. And to be honest, they'll need all the help they can get to fight against the Night King. But one of the most interesting revelations is that we've seen a flaming sword involved in filming. And not only one, but we've seen 3 men charge into battle with flaming swords. And we've seen an action scene filmed with these characters with other soldiers of some type. It could be our main characters versus wights, but to be honest, it looks more like they're 2 types of people who are fighting. It is a very intricate and choreographed fight. So that raises the question, who are these 3 men with flaming swords? And I think first of all, the natural is Beric. I think that Beric will go to Castle Black first, because the Night King was heading south, and Beric will run back to Winterfell to warn Jon of what happened. And it would make sense for Beric to return to Winterfell to help defend it. But the other 2 are more unknown. And I'm going to wager 2 guesses. I think the second person is Jon Snow. Because I think that Beric Dondarrion will teach Jon Snow this flaming sword technique. Because first of all, this flaming sword looks like it runs through blood magic. Every time Beric Dondarrion lights his sword, he runs his hand along it, almost like he's cutting himself to light the sword. But what's interesting is that Jon and Beric share a common characteristic. And that is that they were both resurrected by the Lord of Light. And they're both fire wights.
We both serve the same lord. I serve the North.
The North didn't raise you from the dead.
The Lord of Light never spoke to me. I don't know anything about him. I don't know what he wants from me.
He wants you alive.
Why?
I don't know.
Fire is really the one thing that keeps Jon and Beric alive. So maybe Beric told Jon about how to access that inner fire that is keeping him alive, and shows Jon the technique of lighting his own sword. using his own internal being provided by the Lord of Light. It would be an interesting characteristic that in order to be able to light a sword, you must experience death and be brought back by the Lord of Light. But with that reason alone, it really confuses me on who the third person could be. But if I were to wager a guess, I would say it is the Hound. The Hound has been spending a lot of time with the Lord of Light, and you could say that he died and was resurrected. And he is a person who was told over and over again of his importance, how the gods weren't done with him yet, how there's still so much more left in his life that he has to do, how important he is. And I think the Lord of Light thinks so too, and that's why I think the Hound could conjure the ability to light his sword. These would be 3 chosen people by the Lord of Light who have been kept alive because of the Lord of Light's will, and who would be provided the flaming sword to help fight for the Lord of Light's cause. But moving on from the flaming swords, there are other weapons that have been seen on set. There are multiple trebuchets that have been seen firing balls of fire. So all of these projectiles that are being lit on fire make sense to be a natural weapon against the wights. Daenerys and Jon could get all these trebuchets and shoot them outward towards the incoming Night King army. And that would do a great job at lighting up the environment in which they are fighting, as well as clear out some of the White Walker horde. Another reason, however, could be the Golden Company using these as weapons to fire on Winterfell. My logic from this stems from the fact that we see Winterfell burning to the ground. It is completely set on fire. I don't necessarily think this is true, but I think it's a possibility. So that goes into what I personally think will happen, based on the information provided. And with that comes a struggle between the Golden Company going to Winterfell and laying it under siege, versus the White Walkers just attacking Winterfell. But if I were to wager a guess on what I want to happen, I would say the White Walkers strictly attack Winterfell. I think the trebuchets are going to be used to thin out the White Walker horde. And I think Winterfell goes up in flames so strongly because it was lit on fire by a dragon. The Golden Company may play a role in this fight, but I think the primary focus of this battle is between the White Walkers and the Northerners. It could also potentially become like a Hardhome. You have a conflict between the Golden Company and the Northerners, and then the White Walkers come and everyone ends up fighting together or escaping together. And this action sequence at Winterfell has finally been wrapped. It took 2.5 months to shoot this whole action sequence, and that is more than double of the previous record of any Game of Thrones shoot. So the spectacle of this Winterfell action sequence is blown out of proportion. It's going to be twice the size of Battle of the Bastards and anything we have ever seen before. But with that being said, I guess we just have to wait and see. So that is it, everybody. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. How do you think the battle for Winterfell will play out? I'll be back tomorrow with a news video strictly about the battle at King's Landing and what that means. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.